depending on your computer, but on NinjaTrader and for scanning, then on TradingView even. And it also has things like exposed plots, if you want to reference those in other tools or in other features and tools of NinjaTrader 8, for example, the market analyzer, or perhaps something like Bloodhound, something like this.
And it looks fantastic. Look at this, all these boxes here, colors. I think it's just a well-rounded indicator for NT8. Sorry. Go ahead, Nicholas.
For sure. And then the next slide, please, Daniel. And what we're going to see, we're going to take a look at the indicator on the chart, but we're also going to see how we can use it for really robust scanning, just like on TradingView, with a little bit more customizability because the NinjaTrader Market Analyzer is a lot more mature than the TradingView Pine Scanner. But you can scan for some high return opportunities, and we can see actually here Daniel's trade of the day, I believe, THC, which showed up in the scan for gaps. So, okay, Daniel, I'm going to take it away and share my screen here.
And real quick on this note, Nicholas, just give me a second. Look at this down gap here. We gap down. This gap got filled on or today, I believe, within today. I guess it was today's bar. Yes, it already got filled to 48.1%. So there's still some room to go, like 52% till we have the gap fill. And if we look at how many of those down gaps, because it was a down gap from here to here, we gapped down on Monday, I believe. Yeah, of those down gaps, all of them got filled except one. And this is exactly this one here. And in fact, if you go further back, so this stems from, I guess, 2001, but I believe you can even go further back in historical data. You may see that, hey, so far in the history of this stock, every single down gap was filled except for this one. So we believe there's a really high chance that this one will get filled as well. And this is why this was one of the reasons why this is our trade of the day today. All right, I ramble, Nicholas. Please take it away.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, so here is the indicator, first of all, on a NinjaTrader chart. And this is actually a setup a lot like Daniel's setup there with that symbol THC. Let me just start off actually, first of all, explaining the indicator. So of course, we've got the main feature of the indicator, which are these gaps. And we've got things called down gaps and up gaps. So when price gaps upwards, like from here on this day, I'm on a daily chart, up to here, we can see a gap was created and these gaps tend to get filled. We can see here this gap only got filled 63% when price dropped down here into the gap. And we can read statistics about these sorts of gaps. So that was an up gap. We can see that in history, there was 18 of them and only 11 have actually been filled. So whenever one of these gaps happens on this symbol, there's actually not that high of a probability that it's going to get filled. On the other hand, though, similar to that symbol THC, and I'll show how I found this one. I found it in the scanner. This is TTWO, T2 Interactive, I think is the company. A couple days ago, it gapped downwards, and the trend, as we'll see in the scanner, was upwards, which is a good sign. So if something gaps down, but the trend is up, there's a higher probability that the gap is going to get filled, and this is just a pullback. And we can see in the statistics, actually, it's an even higher rate than that symbol THC. 15 gaps in the data loaded on this chart, at least 15 times that such a down gap has happened, and only one time has it not been filled. This is the only one time, albeit sometimes it takes quite a while. This is the average amount of days it takes for these gaps to fill. There is a high probability chance that this gap eventually is going to get filled. We got some other information like the nearest unfilled gaps to the upside or downside, and some other settings in the indicator. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just like a lot of our tools, you have things like, let me just move this over. You have features such as color theming, which allow you to, create, oops, whoa, 1 second. Okay, which allows you to theme the indicator to whatever preferred color theme you'd like or to fit your chart layout. So there's color theming, just like on TradingView. You can customize all of the different annotations. And there's also something that we're not going to get into, but we're going to get into in the masterclass, is a whole other type of gaps. The indicator, first of all, focuses on daily chart gaps. It works on intraday charts. So even if you're on a 30-minute chart, you can see the daily gap. But there's also something called fair value gaps. And we're going to see a whole lot of stuff show up on the chart now. But these are actually really important gaps too. We can see one, for example, right here, which then ended up getting filled. One over here, which got filled. And we'll get into these in the masterclass, but they're very useful for day trading. I'm going to turn those off. And yeah, there's a whole lot of features and options. We'll get into them in the class. And we also have in the video on TradingView, it's the exact same options here as there is there. So the next thing we're going to look at is probably the most interesting part of Gap IQ, right? Which is scanning for these setups, scanning for gap setups. So here I've got the NinjaTrader Market Analyzer open, and I've loaded about 110 symbols. Just move this out of the way so we're not so distracted. I've loaded about 110 symbols into the analyzer. And I've created 4 different columns. Now, the way I did this, I right-clicked in the analyzer, I came into columns, I added an indicator, and I loaded up Gap IQ as the indicator. I came down here and I select one of the many plots that Gap IQ allows you to scan for. So for example, this first column I created tells us if the symbol gapped today. So if it gapped down or it gapped up today, this is going to show up. I've got another one telling us just, hey, is price within an unfilled gap? We'll see why this is probably the most useful one that helped us find that trade of the day. And then we finally have one that tells us what's the trend direction. Are we in an uptrend or a downtrend on the daily chart? And my favorite one here is how much. Sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Sorry, I was not saying anything.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, Nicholas. Yeah.
Is called gap fill move percentage. So what this tells us is basically if the gap gets filled, how much return can we actually make on the trade? So how much, if, let's say if price gaps down and then we fully fill that gap upwards, well, how much of a percentage return will we actually get on our investment if that gap does get filled? And we do have some other columns that I haven't added here. We'll see them on the chart, but things like the actual historical rate of the gap being filled, so on and so forth. So here we can see these different gaps. So one thing we could do, first of all, is sort our inside gap column. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to show us all the symbols that are currently within an up gap. So if I click here, 1 second, boom, or within a down gap, 1 second. Here, all the symbols, sorry, which are within a down gap. So here, for example, on Meta, I can find out, hey, whoops, we are currently within a down gap. And if that gap gets filled in its direction, so if we come all the way down, sorry, not a down gap, an up gap. Sorry, I got a little bit mixed up. I miscolored these. They should be red for up gaps because when you gap upwards, it's red because you're expecting price to go down. So Meta, for example, here has gapped up. So we're inside of an up gap. If price goes down and that gap gets filled, we stand to gain 5%. On Amazon, we are in an up gap as well. Price gapped up here. We are inside the gap. If price comes down and fills this gap, we stand to gain 10% if we short it. And we can look at over here at the statistics. Hey, out of the last 27 up gaps, 7 of them have been filled. So it's a pretty decently high rate, but not that high.
Have not been filled. Have not
likelihood.
been filled. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Only 7 of them have not been filled.
Yeah.
And if we sort in the other direction, like this, we can see now which symbols are inside of a down gap. And we can also compare this with the trend here. So we found that symbol before T2 interactive. This is how we can read this scan and why it's useful. Now, the most interesting setups are the ones where the gap color, the color of the gap that you're inside of, is opposite the color of the trend. And this is why. So on something like this symbol, which I haven't seen yet, DLTR, it tells us that our trend is bullish. It's green. And we're inside of a down gap, and we have 5.5% basically to gain if the rest of the gap gets filled. And we can see, if we look on the chart, let's move my zoom window, that's all true. We're inside of an uptrend here, at least in the shorter term. We are inside of a down gap, and if price moves up and fills that gap, which spans from 100 to 111, and we're at about 105.60 cents right now, we could still gain 5%. On Lululemon, we are inside of a down gap, which happened right here. So we gapped down. We're inside of that gap, but this isn't that nice of an opportunity. Why? Because we might be inside of a down gap, but we're also inside of a downtrend. So even though we can make nearly 21% profit if price rises from 170 up to 200, the trend isn't telling us that that's terribly likely to happen. One symbol though is the one Daniel. This is the one Daniel picked as trade of the day, THC. So this one does fit, our preferred criteria, which is it's in a down gap, so a gap down, and it's also within an uptrend. So it's likely that's going to get filled. It's got a high rate of filling, 90%, and there's, still some percentage, 2.76% gain to be made. And I'll maybe click on one last one, MAR, going to look similar to what we've seen. Hey, it's in an uptrend, at least on the daily chart. In the short term, looks like it's actually having a breakout. And if it manages to fill this old gap, which hasn't been filled for, since the start of the year, we stand to gain about 4%. So yeah, there's a lot you can do. And even all these statistics that we've got over here, like the percentage of ones that have been filled, we can easily create a column for that right here.
Yeah, and we'll teach you all this, of course, in the masterclass. So if you're overwhelmed now, all these different options, which might be like complex, but it's actually quite simple. But we're going to walk you through in the masterclass of that.
Yep. Okay. So I'm not going to go too far into these technicals, but yeah, you don't even have to check the chart. We can see right here, what percentage of up gap. So here, this one's inside of right here, an up gap. And we can see, okay, 66% of the time that one fills. This one, 89% of the time, those gaps fill. So very useful information that we can get just at a glance to find some good swing trading setups.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Nicholas. That's awesome. Really cool. I'm super happy. It took us a bit longer to get this indicator ready, but I think the result speaks for itself. It looks awesome. It's lightning fast on NT8 and it works great with the scanner. So yeah, that's fantastic. And our next stop, Niklas, is going to be the Motive Wave version for all you Motive Wave users out there. That's our next goal. And Niklas told me potentially this week. We'll see. Sometimes you never know what can happen during development. It's a bit unpredictable, but that's our next top priority. All right. So Niklas, thank you so much for this. I'm going to share my screen again. That was great. Yeah. And now a quick reminder, if you are intrigued of our Gap IQ indicator, you can, take advantage, or we can acquire it at tradingindicators.com/gap. And this would be either for TradingView, NinjaTrader, or Motive Wave. And Motive Wave is expected to be released this week, at the end of the week, or perhaps early next week. So tradingindicators.com/gap for